Hello, new format. I'm finally on camera in real time. Yay. Today's topic, we're starting the Princess Bride series. Right now I have 3 planned videos, but I have a 4th tentative because I do want to do a Frankenstein movie and book comparison video since I did the other Frankenstein video that you should go see. So I read and watch The Princess Bride for the first time ever, like as an adult. So this is brand new to me. I think I was supposed to read it in high school, but I think I did the Cliff Notes. Don't do that. Please read your books, okay? Don't be like me, an adult that has to go back and reread things. Like I had to read Harry Potter for the first time 3 years ago. I pretended that I read them in like the 2nd grade, but I didn't. And the only reason why I did is because I wanted to take the AR test. If you don't know what AR tests are, your back doesn't hurt. Climb. So back to The Princess Bride. For this video, we're going to be talking about types of loneliness. There are many different types of loneliness in the world, and loneliness is actually studied in psychology quite a bit. From who gets lonely, how they get lonely, how you treat loneliness, because you can't treat all loneliness the same way. Each type is a little different. If you're interested in that, please continue watching this video. And if you're not interested, please mute this video, but keep it going because it would really help my channel out. I don't know where to put this in the context of my videos. I'm just gonna put this here. When I read this quote, "The prince, when rushed, rode all 4, bareback, the only way he ever rode," I thought he was riding all 4 horses at once. I will note that if you haven't read or watched, spoiler alerts. In fact, I think on this channel, I'm not going to do a ton of recapping, maybe like a quick recap of the story, but this channel is really focused on just things I noticed about the shows and books, more of an analysis than retelling. So The Princess Bride shows us different consequences of loneliness. The 3 characters we're going to be talking about today are Inigo, Fezzik, and Westley, and Buttercup should be on this list too, but I'll talk about her in the next video. Each of these characters experience relationship loss and attempt to solve their loneliness in different ways. Another disclaimer, I'm not a mental health expert. I know I said it in the last video, but I'm still not. I haven't gotten any certification, I don't have a license, I'm just a girl. If you have any questions about your own loneliness or you want to look more into it, maybe you need some help, please contact professionals. Do not use this video as a self-help guide. This is not that video. And of course, all reference material that I use will be in the description and I will put it on screen so you can see where I'm getting my information from. As I said, there's a lot about loneliness that's studied. I'm going to go through some different sources of information so we can get an idea of what all the girls are saying about loneliness. My first stop is always Wiki. Look, I'm not saying to believe everything on Wiki, but I am saying to go click the little references that they list. You can go and bounce around and see where they're getting their information from. So it's a good starting off point. From Wiki and the resources that it does reference, I read about Robert S. Weiss, or Weiss. Weiss? Look, I'm a reader. I don't know how to pronounce things, okay? So I read about Robert Weiss, and he said there are 2 different principles of loneliness: social and emotional loneliness. Social loneliness is the loneliness people experience because of the lack of a wider social network. They may not feel that they are members of a community or that they have friends or allies on whom they can rely on in times of distress. Emotional loneliness results from the lack of deep, nurturing relationships with other people. Weiss tied this concept of emotional loneliness to attachment theory. People have a need for deep attachments, which can be fulfilled by close friends, though more often by close family members such as parents and later in life romantic partners. Weiss also said that these 2 types of loneliness need to be studied independently because they're different and they can only be treated in different ways. You can't treat one type of loneliness with another treatment. That's just not how this works. Well, at least that's what he says. Wiki also states that there's a difference between solitude and loneliness. We're not going to get into that today. So let's move on to another piece of literature that I read, and this is from Psychology Today. Actually, before I get into it, Psychology Today is a really good resource. You can find professionals on there in your local area with your insurance. Like that's how I found my own support system there. So highly recommend Psychology Today. And no, this is not an ad. Have you seen my channel? I just started. There's no sponsorships here, okay? I personally use Psychology Today. So I read this article on the 7 different types of loneliness. And here's the list. 1, new situation. 2, I'm different. 3, no sweetheart. 4, no animal. 5, no time for me. 6, untrustworthy friends. 7, quiet presence. The article concludes by saying that one of the keys, maybe the key to happiness, is strong connections to other people. The lack of these bonds, even temporarily, is a major happiness stumbling block. Now, moving on to a study I read about loneliness. There's a paper by Amy Rokach and David Berman. In this paper, they went over 17 different studies about loneliness. So you can go ahead and read the different studies that go into the detail about the different types of loneliness and the real consequences that loneliness has. Loneliness is beyond just a feeling. You can be physically altered by chronic loneliness. So this is like big time. Loneliness is not just this fleeting feeling. It can really affect you. So that's why we're talking about it today. So what does this mean for our 3 characters? Well, I'm not a professional, but I'm going to say that they have chronic emotional loneliness due to relationship loss. Let's start off with our favorite, Inigo. Inigo was an only child. I actually wrote solo and then single child, but realized that didn't sound right. Inigo lived with his dad, who was I would say a humble sword maker, although I would call him stubborn. He let his friend take credit for the swords he made, but I think he only did it because he was judging the people who were commissioning the swords. Because if it was a sword that challenged him, I feel like he would take ownership of it, which is what happens, but we'll get there in a second. His dad was so principled that he would refuse work if it really wasn't that challenging. He sacrificed what would have been a better life, or at least having more resources for Inigo. He could have sacrificed a little bit of his pride to have resources to support Inigo, but he didn't. He said things like, once, just once, ride up and say, Domingo, I need a sword for an 80-year-old man to fight a duel. And I would embrace you and cry, yes. Because to make a sword for an 80-year-old man to survive a duel, that would be something. Because the sword would have to be strong enough to win, yet light enough not to tire his weary arm. Inigo also became a parent to Domingo during this time. Inigo really had no adult to lean on. He was constantly taking care of his dad. And that didn't help when he took on the six-fingered man's commission. He dropped everything, even just functioning day to day. And he had to have Inigo push him along. Domingo slept only when he dropped from exhaustion. He ate only when Inigo would force him to. And then he'd say something like, I am the most wretched of creatures. Say you wouldn't mind if I killed myself so I could end this existence. But I would mind, Father. I love you, and I would die if you stopped breathing. You don't really love me. You're only speaking pity. Who could pity the greatest sword maker in the history of the world? Thank you, Inigo. You're welcome, Father. I love you back, Inigo. Sleep, Father. Yes, sleep. And while this relationship isn't healthy, once this is taken away from him, as we know, he goes into this training montage. So instead of actually processing and dealing with the death of his father, he just pushes that down and just focuses on his one goal to defeat the six-fingered man. And he sees nothing beyond that. I would argue that he copies his father, who dropped essentially functioning as an adult to create that sword. Now Inigo does the same thing, but with training to defeat the man who commissioned that sword. So what I'm saying is that he's attempting to fill his loneliness with sword fighting. And when it doesn't work, because when you try to fill the void and you don't actually process, has this been here the whole time? It's a dog hair. I'm not refilming this. If this has been here the whole time, then look, just keep it rolling. So when you attempt to fill your loneliness with something other than processing your feelings and a healthy habit and really growing from the experience, it's just not going to work. This attempt to fill his loneliness backfires. At 30, he gave up the ghost. He stopped his search, forgot to eat, slept only on occasion. He had his wine for company, and that was enough. He was a shell. The greatest fencing machine since the Coruscant, look, here we go again. Since the Coruscant wizard was barely even practicing the sword. He was in that condition when the Sicilian found him. Had a relationship taken from him, tried to fill it with being a sword fighter, didn't work after decades, try to fill that loneliness with alcohol. When that didn't work, now he's trying to replace that with Vicini, who I hate. We should all hate Vicini. He's terrible. And once that relationship is lost, he goes back to substance abuse. We can see this is a pattern. If you just keep trying to fill this loneliness, this void in your life, it's not going to work. You're going to be in a cycle of doing this. What really needs to happen is he should have processed all these feelings to begin with. Now, let's take a little bit of a beat and let's talk about substance abuse and loneliness. Healthline says that drinking and loneliness are related. This article was medically reviewed. The article is, "Why does alcohol cause loneliness?" The article says, "Alcohol and loneliness can create a cycle that's hard to break. Often, people drink to relieve feelings of loneliness or to distract themselves from those feelings. But alcohol can cause people to further withdraw from loved ones and can increase feelings of depression and isolation. Addressing loneliness without involving alcohol is the best way to break the cycle. What seems to be a quick fix or a soothing experience eventually drowns you. When this doesn't work, you're desperate to feel that first fix." So as we saw with Inigo, he just kept trying and trying and trying, and nothing really filled his loneliness. He just kept getting worse. So I'm just going to put up some resources that relate to substance abuse. You can check them out. Again, I'm not a mental health professional, but here are some sources that I found that could be a good place for you or someone you love to go to. Let's move on to our next character, Fezzik. In his life, was abandoned twice. He experienced relationship loss almost back to back. I'd argue more than that in his life, but the two biggest relationship loss that he experiences are his parents and Vicini. He grows up with parents who exploit his size and force him to fight and to get money for that, to support them. They don't listen to Fezzik's wishes, how he literally says, "Hey, I don't want to fight." And he's like 6 when they start making him fight, and he's just like, "Bro, I don't want to do this." And I just think about a child telling a child to go fight for money. To top it all off, when he does fight, because he ends up winning so easily, I mean, he's huge, he's very tough to beat. His opponent and the audience will say, "Well, that wasn't even a fair fight, so like your win didn't mean anything." So he would just get booed out of every city. The point was that Fezzik was alone, in the loneliest place in the world, just sitting there on a rock watching the circus pull away. Then, just like Inigo, what happens? A Sicilian comes into his life, Vicini. So his loneliness from those relationships being lost is suddenly filled with another relationship. He was still sitting there the next day when Vicini the Sicilian found him. Vicini flattered him, promised to keep the booze away. Vicini needed Fezzik, but not half as much as Fezzik needed Vicini. As long as Vicini was around, you couldn't be alone. Whatever Vicini said, Fezzik did. And if that meant crushing the head of a man in black, so be it. Vicini treats him just how his parents did. He's just like, "Hey, you're gonna fight for me," and that's it. He constantly ignores his feelings and punishes him for trying to think for himself. And he also constantly threatens to leave him behind. It was terrifying when he did it. With most people, they scream and holler and jump around. With Vicini, it was different. He got very, very quiet, and his voice sounded like it came from a dead throat, and his eyes turned to fire. "I tell you this, and I tell it once. Stop the man in black. Stop him for good and all. If you fail, there will be no excuses. I will find another giant. Please don't desert me," Fezzik said. "Then you do as you're told." Fezzik, just like when he was a child, is dependent on Vicini for everything. And when this relationship is lost, just like Inigo, he attempts to fill it again with something else. And he just keeps trying to depend on others. Without others, he shrinks back and sees himself as his greatest fear, which is being replaceable, being a burden, being a tool. Now let's talk about Westley. Westley, the best boy, my favorite character. His character growth is impressive. Even though he becomes so strong, he does experience loneliness. No one is naturally resistant to it. This is a feeling that can be overbearing. It's important to know that even the most perfect person, like Westley, would still feel that way. So we aren't given any backstory on Westley before his time at Buttercup's family farm. It's safe to assume that he experienced relationship loss with his own biological family. When he does come to the farm, he's only referred to as his job title, farm boy. He's not really seen as anything other than his station. And he also doesn't get any thanks for anything he does. The farm boy did what she told him to. Actually, he was more of a young man now, but he had been a farm boy when, orphaned, he had come to work for her father, and Buttercup referred to him that way still. Farm boy, fetch me this. Get me that, farm boy, quickly. Lazy thing, trot now or I'll tell father. Now, it is only when Buttercup's feelings for him change that he is suddenly recognized as a person. And something similar happens when he becomes a pirate. When he joins Dread Pirate Roberts, he, like Inigo, takes into training. He is hungry to learn everything there is to know about being a pirate. He does so well that Dread Pirate Roberts is like, all right, you give it a go now. And he's like, bet. And when he tries to take another ship, he gives his own name, Westley, and they're like, I have no idea who that is. I'm not scared of you. Not only did I like it, but it turned out that I was talented as well. So talented that Robert said to me one April morning, Westley, the next ship is yours. Let's see how you do. That afternoon, we spotted a fat Spanish beauty loaded for Madrid. I sailed up close. They were in a panic. Who is it? Their captain cried. Westley, I told him. Never heard of you, he answered. And with that, they opened fire. I would say that he is experiencing loneliness with his identity because he's never seen for who he is. He has to take on a different identity to become someone. What I'm saying is he sacrifices himself just to be successful. And this seems to be a means to an end, as his ultimate goal is to get back to Buttercup, but like Inigo, depending on one person, will only take you so far. And I'll just sneak in this little bit about Buttercup. She experiences loneliness her entire life, essentially. Westley does come in and alleviates that. But I mean, if you think about it, she's pretty lonely. In the book, they talk more about her beauty and they isolate her in terms of being above other women and is almost untouchable and is only liked because of her beauty. I mean, that's why the whole prince thing and her happen anyway, because she's a beautiful person and isn't bald like that one girl that the prince was going to marry, and he just couldn't deal with her being bald. Today's topic is just about loneliness and how some of our characters felt. In our next video, I will talk about what happened to them after their attempts to fill their loneliness failed, because they do come out of it. People do grow. They are not just lonely the rest of their lives, okay? I will say, I have felt loneliness before, and I'm actually experiencing some loneliness when you get older. When you get older, young ones, your social groups get smaller. When you're younger, you kind of have built-in social groups, school, after-school activities, your family. Everything's kind of tight-knit and built in for you. But as you get older, not only do those groups change because you grow apart, right? You go to different schools, maybe you like different things, maybe you move cities. There really isn't a built-in social network for you to get into as an adult. You go to college, you might meet new people, yes, but then you graduate, you get a job, you might make friends with your coworkers, but what if you leave for another job? You see what I'm saying? It keeps getting smaller. And as we said, that your relationship to others and ability to connect with others is super, super vital, and you can have super real consequences for not having a support system. That is something that I am dealing with, but I'm not trying to fill the void here like our characters did today. Let me know if you're experiencing loneliness or what's worked for you. I'll do the common YouTuber sign off, which is please like and subscribe. It would really help my channel out. But for real, if you do like this video, go ahead, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a like anyway. Like it out of spite. All right, I will see you guys in the next video.